Joining us here to kick off hour number 3 in person with an outstanding NBA Jam t-shirt on is our friend from Sports Illustrated and DAZN, Chris Mannix. Good to see you, Chris. How are you?
I've got at least 10 of these, maybe more.
And it's a Gasol versus Siakam.
Yeah.
But it's not Pau Gasol.
No, it's Marc Gasol has been retired for a couple of years.
Yep.
And Pascal Siakam, who is now a member of the Indiana Pacers.
That's right.
It's a vintage NBA. If NBA Jam's already vintage, but this is a vintage NBA Jam.
Vintage times 2.
Yes.
All right. Last time we spoke with you, we knew LeBron was going to stay. We sensed it. He is. And Paul George is now a member of the 76ers. Let's take this one at a time. Why am I seeing LeBron's decision to stay being viewed as a pay cut? Why am I seeing that?
I mean, technically it is.
How so?
By a couple of $1 million. Really, it's a bookkeeping pay cut, right? Like the Lakers, because there are multiple tax aprons under this new collective bargaining agreement. And when you cross a certain tax apron, it becomes significantly more difficult to do deals. Yes. So not only does it cost you a little bit more money, it shrinks your ability to reshape your roster. So LeBron, in taking a couple of $1 million less over the lifetime of this deal, keeps that Laker team under the first apron, which allows them to potentially make deals during the season. So he is giving the Lakers a little bit of wiggle room by giving a little bit of money back.
So he's giving a little bit of money back and the ability for some wiggle room. What are they going to do with this wiggle room?
It's hard to say because, look, the dust has largely settled on most of the deals in the NBA. When I talk to league executives now, the name that comes up most often is Lauri Markkanen in Utah. The Jazz may elect to move off him, and there are several teams that are...
He's a terrific player, man.
Terrific player. And I think the Jazz, knowing Danny Ainge, when you have a property like Lauri Markkanen and several teams anxious to get their hands on him to keep up with this arms race that's going on, specifically in the Western Conference, you're in an advantageous position. The Knicks got 5 first-round picks in exchange for Mikal Bridges. I would imagine that or right around that is the starting point for the Jazz with a trade for Lauri Markkanen. So people are talking about Markkanen. Markkanen has nothing to do with the Lakers. The Lakers are not getting a player of that caliber. What could happen is, mid-season, players break free, circumstances change, and the Lakers now have a little bit of flexibility in terms of what they can do according to the collective bargaining agreement with some of their draft capital and with some of their movable contracts that they could make a deal around midseason.
So the Laker team, as currently constructed, heading to the thick of the summer season, this is the Laker team we're going to see for J.J. Redick in November?
I think it is October. What it is, Rich. I think, look, they were clearly more determined than most thought to not trade their draft picks. And if they were going to trade their draft picks, it had better be for an elite player, a guy that could fit their mold long and short term. Like DeJounte Murray was someone that a lot of people around the league expected the Lakers to make a run at. They really didn't do that. They did make a run to try to sign Klay Thompson in the offseason. Klay elected to go to a team that was more championship ready in the Mavericks. But the Lakers don't want to just deal away picks into the 2030s. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about picks the Lakers would trade into the next decade that will hamstring them and their ability to build the team moving forward. So the Lakers, they decide to sit back. A lot of people are high on, Dalton Knecht. Rookies don't generally make a big impact in year one at least. So the team we saw last year with the Lakers is probably going to be the team we see this year.
Well, I mean, when Dalton Knecht got drafted, you want to go ahead and say what you were thinking when Knecht got drafted?
I thought it meant Reaves is out because isn't Reaves being asked for in trade offers?
He's being asked for. The Lakers, from what I've been told, have been pretty resistant to dealing him. Mm-hmm. Look, he's 25, 26 years old. He's a part of their long-term future as well. And the Lakers just don't want to sacrifice that just to get, maximize 1 or 2 more years of LeBron James. They'll do that if it means getting back an elite player, but not a Zach LaVine, not a DeJounte Murray. They need more than what they would just consider, I think, a lateral move. So look, What I love about the draft, just in general, is that we went into the draft, most people saying it was garbage, saying it was one of the worst drafts we've had in years. Now that it's over, everybody's going to help. Everybody's going to be an impact player in this team. I think Knecht is he's obviously a shooter. The fact that he's 22, 23 years old means he's more likely to be ready to play right away. But when guys fall that far, you start asking around, people are pointing to his defense and saying, how much can you play him if he's not going to be a strong defender? That's where he's going to have to prove himself. I think his offense is going to be pretty good right away. But if he can't defend and you're putting him out there with D'Angelo Russell and some other guys that aren't elite defenders, as a team, you're going to run into problems.
Chris Mannix, Sports Illustrated, here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's move on to Paul George. Podcast P spilled some tea today. That rhymes.
Was great. I listened to that on the way in. It was phenomenal.
And his podcast, right? So let's take it, I guess, a step at a time. He's not on the Clippers now. Why? Look, Paul George on his podcast gave one side of the story, right? Like, the Clippers have not confirmed anything that he said, but there's reason to believe that Paul George is telling the truth. I'm not sure why he would brazenly lie at this point. What he said was, last October, he was offered a 2-year, $60 million extension that he deemed, I forget the word he used, insulting, just not the right kind of offer. When Kawhi Leonard signed his 3-year, $150 million extension in, I think it was January, February, Paul George said, I would have taken that deal, that exact same deal, if it was offered. The Clippers, according to Paul George, never offered it. When he got to the offseason, and Paul came off a great season, 74 games, 20-something points per game. His efficiency numbers were terrific. He was as valuable in this past week when he hit free agency as he's ever been in his career. He says the Clippers came and offered 3 years, $150, but given that Paul George now had some leverage because he knew Philadelphia was sitting out there, he said, okay, I'll take the 3 years, $150, but you have to throw a no trade clause in. The Clippers said no. He said, okay, give me 4 years at $212, the same deal that the 76ers were offering. Clippers said no. So why did they say no?
Well, the Clippers have been, we talked about the aprons just a moment ago with the Lakers. The Clippers have been watching that as well, and they have got some big contracts on their books. Kawhi just signed a big deal, and if they had signed Paul George in the coming years, they would have been deep into that first or second apron. So they wanted to be able to increase their flexibility. So they wanted to try to get Paul at something of a discount. Paul wasn't having it. And look, sometimes you roll the dice in these situations. Paul George, by turning down the extension in October, he could have gotten injured. He could have had a bad year, but he had a great year. And he had one team out there in Philadelphia that he knew was always going to be out there with that type of deal. So to me, it feels like the Clippers kind of blew this a little bit, because now they're stuck with a team that, as I look at the Western Conference, it feels like the Clippers are a play-in team, right? Like, and that might be best case scenario. I mean, Kawhi Leonard was having an MVP year last year before he got injured in the second half of the season. Right. But he always gets injured. James Harden, another year older. What can you expect from him? And now the talent around those guys is kind of, ish.
That's the thing I'm just stunned about, that we're talking aprons for a team owned by a guy who could probably, who's got the money if the fifth apron was, Saturn. Oh, right. I mean, so why would he, with opening a new building, and the Lakers are still the Lakers in this town, and the Clippers having an opportunity to hang on to somebody who, again, we're waiting for Paul George to have that playoff moment where he just puts you on the back and he starts dominating in a way. I'll be honest with you, like Luka, we did at times this playing playoff season. Anthony Edwards, I could go on and on. Jaylen Brown. We haven't really seen that from Paul George. Now you could sit here and say, well, that's not his role. That's not, that's not the team that he's been on or built. But we just, that's what somebody who wants to command $50 million a year. That said, he's your guy. Who else is out there? You're looking now into the abyss of being a play-in team. I'm stunned that they're like sitting here talking about, well, the apron would be this. For Ballmer, really? Aprons?
It's not the money, right? Like, Steve Ballmer is the richest owner in NBA history. Like,
he could be the richest owner in all of North American sports right
incredible.
now. Throw everybody in the mix.
It is a question of, look, the NBA in its last two collective bargaining agreements has done a fantastic job of legislating these big spenders out. The last 6 years, there have been 6 different NBA champions. And that is partly due to the fact that the NBA is not allowing teams just to spend their way to success. And it's not just the Clippers that are facing this. Look at the Denver Nuggets. The last couple of years, how many veterans have the Denver Nuggets lost because they don't want to spend into these aprons? You had 2 years ago, you had Bruce Brown, you had Jeff Green. This past year, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, he goes and signs with Orlando. Every team in the league is faced with these specific type of issues. The Clippers, they can obviously afford Paul George. And you make a good point. They want to have as talented a roster as possible going into this new building down the street. Right. But if you start spending all that money, all of a sudden you start hamstringing your ability to make other deals that can build a kind of winner around your team. Now, I'm saying that, but I'm agreeing with you. They should have spent the money. They should have offered Paul George the exact same contract they offered Kawhi Leonard back in January. And if it came to it this summer, they should have said, fine, 4 years, $212, we'll deal with the fallout later. Because by doing that, at the very least, you'd keep that window open for Paul George and Kawhi Leonard to win a championship. Now, It is closed and probably closed forever.
Chris Mannix here on the Rich Eisen Show. What about the idea that the Warriors were going to acquire Paul George? What? I mean, he mentioned that on his podcast today. What reporting might you have on that front?
Yeah, this was something that was discussed at length over the last week or so. Once it became clear that Paul George and the Clippers were not going to get on the same page, the Warriors made a very aggressive push to get Paul George via sign and trade. They couldn't sign him outright. They don't have the cap flexibility. They made some offers. They've got Andrew Wiggins' contract that could make it worth. They got some good young players. Jonathan Kuminga, I think, was the most appealing one.
He was offered
to the Clippers. I don't know that he was offered. I think that he's the one guy in that Warriors mix that they want to hold on to. Understandably so. Yeah. He's kind of got all-star written all over him. But ultimately, they couldn't come to an agreement. And you heard on Paul's podcast, he was disappointed by that. Like, Paul is a West Coast guy. Yeah, he played in Indiana. He played in Oklahoma City. He re-signed in Oklahoma City. But he is a Palmdale, California, Southern California guy. If at all possible, he wanted to find a way to stay on the West Coast. That's why the Warriors were his preferred destination. But once it became clear that the Clippers just weren't going to accept any of the stuff that Golden State was offering, again, he knew Philadelphia was out there. Philadelphia has one shot at spending all this money, one chance to blow through that $50 million. They are the Brewster's Millions of NBA teams, just out there trying to spend what they had to spend. And Paul George ultimately, even though he probably, you can say with certainty, Philadelphia wasn't his first choice, he ultimately wound up signing there.
Huh. All right. So then let's talk about the Sixers. How's this going to work? What do you think?
I think it's going to work pretty well.
Okay.
You still have to worry about Embiid's physical condition, right? He is the linchpin to all of it. That being said, I mean, I've talked to enough people around Philadelphia to make me believe that next year, I hate using the phrase load management, but I think Joel Embiid's going to be load managed, right? He won his MVP. He's got his individual accolades. His contract is not in question.
Right.
I think he's going to be load managed well so that he's healthy, or try to keep him healthy going to the playoffs. Tyrese Maxey, we saw take a huge jump last year. He'll probably take another jump this year. And I think Paul George as a third option makes a lot of sense, even if he's only getting the same looks that Tobias Harris got with that team. He's going to make more of them. And I think Paul George, as a playmaker, is better than Harris. And without the pressure of having to be the man, without the pressure to have to give you 20, 25, have the ball in your hands down the stretch, I think he's going to thrive in that role. And some of the deals the Sixers have made after that, Caleb Martin, that's a great pickup. They've had a few other guys, Eric Gordon, around the fringes that they've been able to add to that mix. I think they've got a very, very good team that should position them right now to be number 2 in the East behind Boston.
So when does Morey get P.J. Tucker? When does that happen?
Hey, P.J. Tucker wants out, so
Hey, listen, can't quit him. No, but in all seriousness, I mean, you see Paul George going to the Sixers. You see Bridges going to the Knicks. Obviously, DeRozan going to the Kings. That's a neat pickup right there, right? Who am I missing here? Murray goes to
New Orleans. That'll be interesting. New Orleans is another team that's not done yet. They've got to deal with Brandon Ingram, and look, there's some contractual issues there. I don't think they want to full max him out. Ingram, smartly is looking to get that full max contract, but that's where they stand now.
Right. So the reason why I'm kind of going down this list here is I'm trying to see where the Celtics from their ivory tower got shaken over the last week.
I don't think they did. Look, the Knicks made a bunch of moves designed to compete with Boston. They got a bunch of wing defenders. Bridges might be, if not the best, one of the best wing defenders in the NBA. That they did that, but of all the guys they signed, they still have their starting lineup still only has 4 All-Stars or 4 All-Star bids on the team, and Julius Randle's got 3 of them. So it's still a team that may lack some of the offensive firepower needed to succeed at that level. Love Philadelphia, but want to see them play first. Celtics brought their top 9 back, and they're all like we just talked about the problems Denver's had over the last couple of years, re-signing guys. The Celtics right now don't have that problem. A couple of years from now, maybe that's going to come up, but Jason Tatum back on a new extension, Derek White back on a new extension, all the core players under contract for at least the next couple of years. This is the Celtics window right now. I mean, I mentioned 16-3 in the postseason, rolled through everybody in the Eastern Conference. Yeah, there are probably Western Conference teams that could give Boston more of a fight than Dallas did. I think Oklahoma City, what they did, Alex Caruso, getting him via trade, getting they just trade for the big man, just getting someone to play alongside Chet Holmgren, I think is Isaiah Hartenstein. So getting him.
Josh Hart gave him a little bit of business on the old gram too.
Well, those Knicks, they love to just talk to each other over and over. But like getting Hartenstein and getting Alex Caruso, those are moves designed to keep up with Boston. Caruso, great wing defender. Hartenstein, great rebounder. They were one of the worst rebounding teams in the league last year. So they could probably give Boston more of a run. But right now, the Celtics, you made them favorites before the offseason started. They're favorites again, I think, as the dust settles.
Yeah, and then, Wick Grusbeck goes ahead and signs everybody and then puts the team up for market.
That's fascinating how that all played out.
Here's the way I look at it, though, Chris, is good for him. As opposed to I don't want to, make this franchise. I don't want to. I want as much as I can get for this franchise, and I don't want to put all this on the books so somebody will say I got to pay you less for the franchise because look how much money you just jacked up the cost of owning the franchise. Instead, he's just like, screw it. I'm going to make the right moves for this team, I think. How many businesses do you see that skim the fat, if you will, before selling so they can make more money? I
don't disagree with that, though. Why this team is being sold is I'm still not entirely clear because in the release, it said in the first paragraph that the group that Wick Grusbeck is the face of was selling for family and estate planning. And Dan Shaughnessy, the Boston Globe, wrote something recently, and he kind of reported on some of the stuff people have been hearing for the last couple of weeks. The family ownership group, Wick's father actually owns, it seems like he actually owns a bigger chunk of the team, H. Irving Grusbeck, and he's, I believe, in his 90s at this point. So when they say family and estate planning, it strikes me that maybe it's other family members that are more interested in selling the team now than Wick is. Look, you have listened to Wick over the last year or so. He, on multiple occasions, he has said the team is not for sale. If you watched him during the parade, like that does not look like a guy that's eager to get out right now. So yeah, everything you're saying is true. Like financially, right now, it makes the most sense to sell because the value is probably going to be well north of $5 billion, might even crack $6 billion. I would think.
I would think so too.
It's going to be a big number. So you sell it at that level, and you avoid paying the luxury tax in the years ahead. But my read on it now is that it's more about other family members.
About dad saying that I'm 90 and it's time telling his son
either
it's too bad
him
we're
or people in the
out.
family like that. It's time to sell the team because again, I just never got the vibe off Wick that he was ready to get out of owning the Boston Celtics.
Why can't Wick just buy out his dad?
It's a lot of money, man. This is why I say this all the time. Like people talk about everybody wants to be an NBA, everybody wants to buy an NBA team. How many individuals have that net worth right now or can even raise that type of money? It's $6 billion. Like, that's a lot of cash to have to put up for these NBA teams. That's why I brought up last week, like, the potential of a casino magnate coming in and buying the team. You just saw the Dallas Mavericks sold to the Adelson family, and they bought the team in large part because whenever Texas legalizes gambling, they want to build a resort casino somewhere in that Dallas area with the Mavericks as the centerpiece of it. In Boston, which is not a huge gambling area, there is a stone's throw from the Boston Garden, an Encore casino right down the street in the town called Everett, which is right next door. Could a casino magnate that it's owned by the Wynn, could a casino magnate like someone that owns the Wynn or involved with the Wynn step in and say, we want to buy the team, we're going to build an arena right there, and all of a sudden we're going to drive business to our casino? Sports gambling in Massachusetts is open for business. Like it's a thriving industry. So I think that's certainly a possibility.
Keep an eye on Terry Benedict, I think is what
Love a good Terry Benedict reference.
Very good. Before I let you go, what is the story of Summer League? What do you got? Is there one?
Bronny?
Is it really?
I saw seriously. The ESPN.com front page had Bronny on it for the entire day.
Well,
basically. That was amazing.
He
had 2 points, I think, in there. 2 shots.
I didn't bring it up. I mean, my 2 cents is just like 55th overall pick on Bronny. Who cares? Go ahead. You're for marketing purposes, for LeBron happy purposes, for the kid is hearing his name called purposes. Who cares? What does it matter? And he winds up playing down the street here in El Segundo for much of the year.
Here's my only question.
Fine.
Yeah.
What does it matter?
Why did he get so much guaranteed money?
I mean, second round picks do get that. If they just don't get the fanfare often that Bronny's.
They get $5 million guaranteed.
Yeah, I mean, look, several others signed. I can't remember their names top of my head, but they signed for around that. It's like a 3-year guarantee and then partials moving forward. The question that I have about Bronny, and that I'll wonder as his career moves forward, was it smart for him and his team to strategically place him in LA? Remember, they only worked out for the Phoenix Suns and the LA Lakers. Bob Myers, the former Warriors general manager, was on television during the draft saying that Rich Paul, the agent for Bronny James, was calling teams saying, do not draft him. If you do, he's going to go to Australia. So they believed, which I don't even know if that would even happen, but they believed that the best place for him was in Los Angeles, playing for the Lakers and playing with his father. Certainly there are reasons that would be a good thing, but there are also reasons that getting the hell out of there and playing in like Oklahoma City or Milwaukee or Orlando make just as much sense. Get out of the fishbowl that's going to exist in LA. Because even if Bronny spends his entire year playing for the South Bay Lakers, the median scrutiny is still going to be intense. Still going to be a lot of people watching. And the second every time he's in that Laker locker room, people are going to be in there watching him when he's on the floor with his dad, watching him. I mean, he can do whatever he wants. And clearly they thought this was the right thing to do. But I wonder if playing in a far-flung, far-away market would have been a better call.
I don't know. I mean, and you may be right, but my opinion is that's their family decision. Yeah. Like I don't know. And is it even if it is our business to even wonder about it? Because what do you think? LeBron sitting down and saying, "Bronny, this has been decided for you."
No, God, no.
You know what I mean?
No.
So the kid wants to play with his dad, maybe, and he's grown up. LeBron's kid. He's probably used to fish bowls. He's probably used to all that, and if he's sick and tired of it, wouldn't he speak up and say, "Dad, it is a dream." But, hopefully maybe you play 4 or 5 more years.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to go start off on my own. Then Rich Paul would be telling teams, outside. Rich Paul would probably saying to Bronny, where do you want to go? Because we'll pull the Australia gambit to send you there too. I don't know. Like, what's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
I'm only looking at this specifically as Bronny, the basketball player.
Sure.
Like, what is the best situation for his development? And you make a great point that he has been in a fishbowl his entire life. Yeah. And I thought LeBron said something really astute recently, like how many kids that grew up with the advantages that Bronny did turned out to be like it, had the kind of work ethic you needed to have to become an NBA player.
Right.
Like, and he's not like blessed with the same kind of physique that his dad is. He's 6'2", right? He is an average size for a basketball player. So he had to work to get to the level where he'd be even considered to be an NBA draftee. So I give him a ton of credit for that. I just wonder, as you're trying to just simply focus on basketball,
right?
Can you do that in this type of environment? That's my only question about this going in.
And you're heading to the Salt Lake?
The under publicized Salt Lake City Summer League.
Who's there?
Philadelphia, Utah, staying at home, Memphis, and Oklahoma City.
Okay.
Yes.
And so the 4 of them play there as opposed to Vegas.
They play 3 days. No, they go to Vegas too. Everybody goes to Vegas as well. But this is kind of where it's a little quieter than Vegas. Still the same people there. But
very good.
Yeah.
I will look for your reports from there, sir.
Okay.
Thanks for coming in here. Good to see you. And let me know when you're back in town.
You got it.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.